Discussion: why buy dogs from breeders? Miscause people who love dogs. I can't wrap my mind around those who still choose to purchase dogs from breeders. In the US, hundreds of thousands of dogs are euthanized each year due to shelter overpopulation. Dog breeding is a slippery slope towards outright animal abuse. Puppy mills are often AKC certified, and dogs are at a greater risk of hormone-related cancers if not spayed or neutered. And for so many other reasons, the practice of breeding is unethical as a whole. I know all of this based off of my own research and experience working in the animal medical field and a grooming shop. To me, dogs are individuals, and I'm curious how people justify getting a dog from a breeder, as if dogs are commodities to be bought and sold. I felt like my beliefs on the subject were pretty universal, however this sub as well as others seem to glorify purebred dogs. I'm genuinely looking for input. Why do people choose to buy purebred dogs? Edit: I regret this. I didn't really want to know. You really do treat dogs like commodities. Shame. In the US, hundreds of thousands of dogs are euthanized each year due to shelter overpopulation. This is increasingly untrue. We are at the point where in most states, shelter dogs are only put down if they have a behavior or medical problem. I live in South Florida, so not even one of the good states, and my local shelter has kept some dogs for over a year waiting for them to be adopted. They currently have over 100 empty kennels. Dog breeding is a slippery slope towards outright animal abuse. Puppy mills are often AKC certified. First of all, the AKC does not certify breeders. All they do is register dogs as purebred. If the only thing you're looking at is this dog AKC registered, of course you are going to get a badly bred dog. There is so much more to it than that. Check the sidebar guide on identifying a responsible breeder. And dogs are at a greater risk of hormone-related cancers if not spayed or neutered. Neutered dogs are at greater risk for other cancers, hemangiosarcoma, osteosarcoma, among others, and they are also at greater risk for ACL tears, hip dysplasia, and various other orthopedic problems. There is not a one-size-fits-all approach. And regardless, we don't cut off a human's balls just because he might get testicular cancer. Why should we do that to a dog? And for so many other reasons, the practice of breeding is unethical as a whole. It really isn't. I know all of this based off of my own research and experience working in the animal medical field and a grooming shop. So I used to groom dogs too, and my experience is that you will not find a lot of clients who have well-bred dogs. You can't judge all breeders based off what walks into your shop. Most good breeders are doing their own grooming anyway. To me, dogs are individuals, and I'm curious how people justify getting a dog from a breeder. It's true that dogs are all individuals, but you can't deny that breeds have traits. A border collie is going to be a high energy dog suitable for someone who wants to do agility. A lab is going to be a great retriever suitable for someone who wants to hunt with their dog. A standard poodle is going to be hypoallergenic, suitable for someone with allergies. A bichon is going to be a more laid back dog suitable for someone looking for a cuddly couch buddy. As if dogs are commodities to be bought and sold. Good breeders really don't treat dogs like a commodity, and the amount they charge is typically just enough to cover expenses. Usually there is an interview process, references are called, etc etc. Sometimes there is even a home inspection. I felt like my beliefs on the subject were pretty universal. That's because you have surrounded yourself with an echo chamber. However, this sub as well as others seem to glorify purebred dogs. Yeah, because they are awesome. I'm genuinely looking for input. Why do people choose to buy purebred dogs? For me, it's mostly the predictably. I have a rescue, and I love her to death, but she's a total couch potato, which wasn't what I wanted in a dog when I adopted her. She also has some serious noise phobias, to the point that she's seeing a behaviorist and is on 2 medications to help. Meanwhile, my purebred dogs from reputable breeders have always been incredible dogs who were exactly what I wanted/needed, with very stable temperaments too. In the US, hundreds of thousands of dogs are euthanized each year due to shelter overpopulation. This is increasingly untrue. We are at the point where in most states, shelter dogs are only put down if they have a behavior or medical problem. I worked at a shelter from 78-82 at a time where there was a huge overpopulation, and nationally roughly 6 million, yes million, dogs were euthanized per year. Our shelter had to euthanize roughly 15 per week to make room for the constant flood of incoming dogs. That's 780 dogs per year. We hated it, but there were so many unwanted dogs. It's now around 600k dogs euthanized per year in the US. That's an incredible reduction, to go from 6 mil to 600k. Many of the euthanasia are for severe issues, health and behavioral. If you had told me in 80 that there would be so few dogs for adoption, that we'd need to import dogs from Korea, I'd think you insane. One caveat, pit bulls and bully breed mixes, BBM, do still have an overpopulation problem, and they are definitely a part of that 600,000 statistic. There's a thing called the Asilama life release rate to figure out how well a shelter is doing. The formula, live outcomes, divided by all outcomes minus unhealthy/untreatable owner requested euthanasia. The Asilama live release rate tells us what percentage of animals left the facility with a live outcome, adoption, return to owner, etc. It's been a long time, and thus I don't have the old numbers, but I'm guessing our LRR was in the 50-60%. That meant a little more than half the dogs left the shelter alive. Now that shelter has a LRR of 92%. All shelters should put out end of the year reports with stats, which include LRR. And due to idle curiosity, I'll look different ones up. Here's one for a shelter near where I live. It has a LRR of 92.3. It's impossible to have a LRR of 100%. Sick, injured and or old dogs often end up at shelters, and in some cases they are too bad off, and euthanasia is a mercy. This shelter is close to and works with a vet school. They seriously try to save every dog. And even with all that effort, they are at 92.3%. I have not searched every shelter in the US, but so far, I'm finding ones with LRR in the 90s. That's amazing. At that old shelter, we had 52 dog runs. Usually all were occupied, and sometimes we had to double up dogs in runs. In the 40 years, the kennel area has been remodeled. They don't need 52 runs anymore. They don't need 42, 32, or 22. They now have 10, but since they typically have a roster of 5 to 6 dogs, not all of those are even being used. When I've posted about this before, I've been told there's lots and lots of shelters that are killing nice, sweet healthy dogs all the time. I'd like to learn where those shelters are and see the stats. Anyway, just some rambling commentary. Close bracket. I don't believe it's true anymore that hundreds of thousands of otherwise adoptable dogs are euthanized each year in shelters. In fact, in many places demand for rescues outstrips supply by a lot. Individuals who want to own a dog are not personally responsible for the lives of dogs in shelters, and they are allowed to want predictability and specific temperaments. I adopted a dog because I have a pretty flexible lifestyle. He's a great dog for me, but he has many health issues and was not properly socialized, and he has limitations as a result. Asking all dog owners to take that on is just unrealistic and unnecessary. Dog breeding is a slippery slope towards outright animal abuse. Puppy mills are often AKC certified, and dogs are at a greater risk of hormone-related cancers if not spayed or neutered. You're conflating poorly bred dogs/puppy mills/backyard breeders with responsible breeders. There's a reason there's something called the slippery slope fallacy. Responsible breeders are in no way comparable to puppy mills, and AKC certification is not a good way to evaluate a breeder. We tell people that all the time on this sub. The evidence related to health and neutering/spaying is not remotely as clear as you're making it out to be, and most people who get their dog from a responsible breeder end up fixing their dog at some point anyways. So I don't understand the correlation. Your beliefs are based on some pretty flawed assumptions and are not at all universal. I'm going to need some sources or clarification on the following. Hundreds of thousands of dogs are euthanized each year due to shelter overpopulation. Dog breeding is a slippery slope towards outright animal abuse. Puppy mills are often AKC certified. Dogs are at a greater risk of hormone-related cancers if not spayed or neutered. As for your beliefs being universal, well, not in my universe. I'm surrounded by and frequently converse with people who support reputable breeders, including people who solely rescue. I prefer getting my dogs from a breeder because I like the predictability with health and temperament. I don't necessarily live a life where I can put my faith in a big gamble. I also like to know that I have the specific support for my dogs. Me getting a dog from a reputable breeder has nothing to do with a dog in a shelter. If I couldn't get a dog from a reputable breeder, I'd only have one dog right now instead of 3. Me getting my poodles wasn't about getting just any dog, it was about getting poodles. The breeders I know can't keep up with the puppy demand. They are not putting puppies into just any home. They are putting puppies into homes with a similar mindset as mine. They want that specific dog. And then there are places where shelters are practically empty. They might import dogs from other areas, but the choices are often slim. Not everyone can grab just any dog and be fine. Allergies. I volunteer and support rescues and shelters in other ways, but it wasn't an option for my family to adopt a dog that wasn't a purebred unless I wanted to legitimately kill a family member. There's also a lot more to it that your post leaves out. Dogs aren't just family pets. There's working dogs, such as police dogs, service dogs, show dogs, etc. They are a commodity. In fact, they are an entire important industry even when we take away the family pet aspect. Breeds have been bred for years to do a certain job and for many training needs to start from such a young age that it's not feasible to supplement with rescue dogs. Breeding isn't unethical, just bad breeding. That's why subs such as this exist to help weed out the bad from the good for people who would normally just buy a dog from a pet shop or the cheapest breeder they can find. In regards to how many dogs are euthanized, I would suggest focusing less on how many get adopted as compared to how many are coming in. That is, the programs that are put in place to help keep animals in their home or provide their owners with resources for medical care and spay/neuter services. That's the biggest problem most places are facing currently, and how long-term change is implemented. Such a good point about retention. I would just add that, if more people went through choosing a responsible breeder and a breed that matched their lives, with predictable traits that matched their lives, we might see increased retention. I have both a shelter dog and a reputable bred purebred. I decided to purchase my second dog because I wanted predictable temperament, a rare breed, a dog to take part in lure coursing, dog shows, and more. These are things I can only get by purchasing a dog. I had no interest in Saluki rescue groups as they are vastly import rescues, with huge behavioral issues for an already sensitive breed, along with many physical injuries. It is just not my job to fix the mess that Bibes, puppy mills, irresponsible people, etc. have made. I chose the dog who is a best fit for me now and long term. The dog that will be with us when we have a family and so on. And the dog that could help me fulfill my hobbies in the dog community. There aren't many rescue dogs in my area. The ones that are here are either pit bulls or imported. I don't want a pit bull, and I question the ethics of importing rescue dogs. I also wanted a dog with solid bone structure and a predictable temperament for agility and therapy work. My next dog, sometime way in the future hopefully, will come from a well-researched reputable breeder. The reason is simple. My girl is a genetic nightmare. While she is absolutely gorgeous to me on the outside, and you couldn't ask for better temperament, she is so physically flawed on the inside. Between bad knees, bad heart, deformed stomach, lung issues, allergies, kidney issues, all of which are genetic and inherited in her case, she is just a mess. A perfectly happy lovable mess who has cost a fortune in vet bills over her lifetime. I want some assurances that my next dog comes from genetically sound parents and a breeder who knows what they are doing health-wise in order to minimize the risks of having another walking vet bill. I adore my girl with all of my heart, but in her 9.5 years with me, the longest she has gone without seeing a vet is 13 weeks. I don't want to live that again. That's the end of the video. Stay safe everyone.